Hello and welcome to day 4 of WWDC Community Week recap. I have the pleasure to be the lead of today. I first want to welcome my two amazing guests here or with us today. First is Anna. Nice that you're here.
Hi everyone. Hi Stefan.
And the second one is Prabaljit. Also nice
Hello
that you're here.
everyone.
Okay, before we start, I want to give a quick plug of a few things that are happening today and tomorrow, because there's a lot of things happening in the community. The first thing is today, there's the Dub series by Jordi Bruin. He's creating an event where people can contribute some pieces of new code with using the new APIs, and then people will discuss it and talk about it. So I think it's a great thing to do or to participate in, because you can get some practical experience with the new APIs, which is always fun. You can follow the Swift UI series on Twitter, I think it is, or just go to Jordi's profile, and there's also a website for it, so I'm pretty sure you're going to find it. And then at the WWDC community, there's also a hackathon happening tomorrow, which will already, I think there's already 30 plus signups, so a lot of people will be participating. You need one teammate to do that. But of course, you can find one on Discord, because there's a great Discord channel where a lot of people are going and are having discussions. So if you want to join, there's also prizes, I think. So it's definitely worth it. And hackathons are always fun. And last of all, I want to give a quick shout out, because yesterday there was the WWDC trivia happening, which was a fun thing. And I want to congratulate Team Swift and Team Swift UI for winning, which is fun because Swift and Swift UI have also been very large topics at this year's WWDC. So that's the perfect segue into our topics today. So which are the sessions that you enjoyed, like today or yesterday, maybe? Prabaljit, what about you?
I think yesterday there was a session called Craft of Swift UI API Design, Progressive Disclosure. So a member of the Swift UI team explained how the thought process that they use while designing the APIs. Like the relevance of that session is like everyone creates reusable components. So we all create usable components, but generally while coding, we focus on the declaration side of a code. But like while designing APIs, the focus is more on the call side, like how the call site will be optimized. So like in this session, they explain like the different components essential while designing an API. So like first one being like knowing about the common use cases, having intelligent defaults, and just using composing instead of like enumerating. For that, like they gave pretty great examples for these each of these thought processes that they mentioned. So like for H stack, they told like what's necessary in H stack, the content that needs to be there. So like if you want to have 3 different elements in an H stack, and if you start like enumerating and giving cases that all 3 are aligned, you want them to be spaced equally. You want 2 to be aligned towards the leading side, 1 to be aligned to the trailing side. These cases, like they go out of hand pretty soon. So instead of enumerating, they just thought about spacer, and using that, they keep a handle on the number of cases while also giving us the option of customizing. Like this is just one example of how they explained why we should not enumerate while designing an API. For all the other things that I mentioned, they have given pretty great examples, like why the default implementation of buttons that we use, the default implementation of text that we use, and why we use it. I think it's a pretty great session if you create a lot of reusable components. So how should you design? How you should think while designing those?
That's super interesting because like you can always change the underlying implementation, right? But the API will just stay
Yeah,
the same, or it's much harder to change, right?
yeah. Like instead of creating a large upfront code, it's creating a quick cycle of iterations. By following these principles, you can just improve it bit by bit.
Very cool. Very cool. Anna, what was one of the sessions that you enjoyed in the past day or two?
Well, I also enjoyed not only SwiftUI sessions, but I was interested in big dive into different sessions about Swift and all these enhancements and improvements. And I love the conception of new protocols with generics, and it's really stunning. And I like the practice that was shown here, and it could be it was really nice explanation, and it could improve a lot of code. And also I was interested not only in Swift, but also I was interested in different sessions about privacy and networking. So in my list, one of the first sessions to watch next is is a session about networking and reducing delays, because I also interested in this part of applications. And what about you, Stefan?
Oh, nice. Also, so yesterday was an AR kit day for me, session wise. I did watch the What's New in AR Kit 6 session. That was really fun. And I also watched one of the. I wanna give that away later as well because I really enjoyed that session. It was also related to AR. But yeah, this was fun because I think ARKit was not really getting that huge push. By the way, do you hear that sound as well? There's like a. Okay, it's better now. So I think the AR didn't get that huge buzz around it, but still there were some nice improvements for it, and I still think there's going to be some major updates to it once the the headset will come out eventually. It will happen sometime, right? So yeah, I mean that's going to be interesting. I'm excited for that, and yeah, that's the most interesting one I watched. And I think you mentioned that you also watched stuff about protocols, right? What do you think
Yes.
is the like? What were some interesting improvements in that area?
Well, I think that the most interesting is how they work with um, how they show not only such simplification with some type and or conception of any type, that and they allow us to use opaque types, opaque in nature, to simplify the work, but also they were shown some simple practice as with the filter sequence, and that's really interesting because I don't remember that they mentioned this before. Maybe this was on Swift 5.6 and I missed it between 5.5. But it's really cool that they also show other practices when they making brief description about new features, and that's really nice. And also I like the explanation about how they show how to use protocols with structures and classes, because many people asking how correctly use structure and classes. And here is the explanation what are the cases when they should be classes and where they should be structures. And also I like all these features about generics and all the new concurrency, of course, new concurrency. Yes, I'm fan of concurrency, and that is why I mentioned it everywhere.
Oh yes, I remember you talking about concurrency on I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. as well. I just remember that I also watched one of the talks about concurrency and about actors. I think it's really interesting because I think it's not always new concepts that they're introducing there, but they're just refining the existing ones and just making it more like visually appealing to use them and to debug them. Because there were also some of the sessions are just visualizations of concepts. Like concurrency is one example, and another example is the build phases. And Prabaljit, I think you've watched one session there as well, right?
Yeah, it was a session called Demystify Build Parallelization in Xcode. So I didn't really have much of an idea how like the Xcode build, like behind the scene, how this works. So this time, like they're mentioning that they have created a build timeline. So I think with Xcode 14, we'll get it. So like it's basically a visualization based on parallelization rather than hierarchy. So like in that build timeline that was shown in the video, the number of rows represent the parallelism, the horizontal length of tasks represent the duration, and the empty spaces shows tasks blocking the build. And like there's also like other neat features like the colors differentiate the targets, and it contains already executed tasks. So like it'll give a better idea like how your build is compiling, how's it working. There are also in the like there are a series of sessions. Different videos have come on all the days. There's also a session about linker improvements in the improvements in linker. So like I just watched this Xcode parallelization video, but like for getting more info about this like debuggers, compilers, there is a series of these 3 videos which I think would be like pretty cool to know tricks like how you could speed up your builds. So, like,
I think that's
people
also
who are
a topic. Sorry, that's also a topic for larger companies specifically, right? Because for small projects, build time is probably not the biggest factor, but when projects are getting bigger and bigger, I think that's a huge factor how like developer efficiency can be improved. So I think it's a really cool thing that Apple's really embracing this visualization part of the everyday workflow. So I think it's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, I don't remember in the like last year's WW, but I think this kind of like information about how the Xcode builds compile, how this works. I think these kind of videos are a first like starting this year. I'm not sure if they did similar kind of videos in any previous situation.
I agree that it's really nice that they have introduced such tools, and that's really useful for every developer because it teach how to make application with best practices and also with best performances. Yes, sometimes it's really important for big products and big companies, but we all know that in our specialty is that today you are working in small company, tomorrow you will be an employer of a great company with big plans. So and to begin with, it's really a nice idea to to learn how to build a really optimized application and to be in with all this stuff. Also, I liked a session about debugging. It was really cool that they have explained everything.
Which one was that? Because I was also I have that on my list.
I think it was yesterday.
Is it debug Swift debugging with LLDB?
Yes, this session. I mean,
Cool. Okay, I'm excited for that because I hope to really learn something from that. Because debugging is always fun, right? And I think it helps when you get really good with it. So I'm really looking forward to that session.
I think with like how they made this build timeline, if they like do some more things about the visualization, then I think it wouldn't be such a daunting task to like for everyone to like understand everything about the LLDB and debug and everything. You can just see the visualization and what's relevant to you, what tasks are blocking your build. I think it could develop into a good practice or good habit later on.
Yeah, totally. And I just wanted to mention, like, on the whole visualization part of tasks and everything. I remember in the What's New in Xcode session, they also introduced things like a built-in support for getting feedback. Like in test flight, users can give you feedback, right, with the screenshot and then adding information to it. But up until now, it's still I would say, a pain to find the feedback because you have to log into your developer account and it's just in the browser. And they're now making it available in the organizer so you can directly see it in Xcode, which I think is a huge improvement because you get a ton of information and you don't even have to leave the IDE. And also they have this new hangs functionality in there, which shows you for the App Store version of your app, it shows you when the main thread was blocked for longer times. So when your app had some frames dropping, and again with information about it, and you can directly jump to the code. You can see the OS version that's where it's happening on. So a ton of information, and that's also speaking to the thing that Anna said. This is definitely helping you improve user experience for users because you will now much easier see when problems are occurring, and also you can tackle them much more easily, I think. So I think it's going to be interesting for indie developers for sure. I think that's a given that this is really helpful. But I'm wondering how bigger companies are actually using these kinds of features in the future. What do you think? Do you think that's also going to be something where larger companies are jumping on?
I think yes, it is important for every company, not only for large company, but also for every freelancer and individual developer. It's a basis of our work. I agree with it.
Cool. Nice. Okay. All right. Are there any other sessions that you enjoyed? Because like for me, the actors one I watched and the concurrency one, which was really nice because they really showed the pitfalls that can happen with the entire async await structure and the new sendable protocol they introduced, which is also like a gradual introduction. So they're not like directly punishing people who are not using it correctly, but they will gradually start with warnings and not warnings for everything. And in the next Swift versions, they will like make it more apparent that there might be data races, for example, happening. And then I think from Swift 6, they will treat this as hard errors. So I think this is a really nice approach for embracing this whole concurrency topic and educating users, because some people probably have never tried concurrency or the new concurrency like async await features and actors before. So I think it's a nice way to introduce this topic like that did last year and then gradually improve upon it and make it like harder to create things like data races.
I think,
So is there...
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I agree
Go ahead,
with
Anna.
you that these sessions are really important, and the new concurrency is much interesting and full of information than old implementation, because even there were a lot of under the hood. Not every developer or user or developer who just learning how to correctly develop know all this information. And when I ask different developers on interview, most of them know only how to use Grand Central Dispatch to make dispatch queues. and to switch between background and main thread. And that is all. The extended version of the answer also contains information about dispatch group, but other things are ignored. And also, it's really nice that Apple show a nice experience how to work with everything. And it's interesting to mention that with all this stuff, ascendable actors and etc., they make everything that we do with concurrency as settable, so we can define what should be shared, how it should be shared, what are the rules of it, and maybe next iteration of all these changes will be that everything will be done automatically, and the SDK will define automatically how the data should be kept and shared between different threads without memory leaks. This is my opinion. And what about you, Prabhajit?
Yeah, I like Grand Central Dispatch. I tried when I first when I first discovered it. I tried understanding it completely, but like for my work, I just saw that learning about like how to get stuff in the main thread, that like didn't work on many things that involved use cases that required me to expand my knowledge outside of it. But with async await, I think they've explained them like really well. They are like in the developer app itself, the new videos that they've made this year, and like their recommendation, like there is pretty good series to understand the new the new Swift concurrency.
It's still interesting because like existing code bases, and I think that's like happening. A lot of code bases are not based on the new concurrency features yet. So I think like we will have the fun of working with GCD for quite a long time still. I think it's probably the same with the UI kit pattern and everything. So I think the change will not be happening as soon, because I remember at Stream where I work, we were also discussing like how to best implement async await and everything. But I mean, the problem with that is that you're introducing a new pattern, and if there's like no urgent need for that, I think completely fine to still go with GCD if it works internally. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see the adoption still, because it's still relatively new in the language, like it's been introduced last year. So I think adoption is still probably not at a very high level, especially for larger code bases. Do you have any insights on that? Are you using the concurrency features in your day jobs?
Um,
Can you repeat?
it is a deadlock between us.
Yeah, it is.
Can you repeat the question? Can you repeat the question?
I was asking if you're using the new concurrency features, so async await, in your day jobs.
I haven't implemented the new concurrency features in my personal projects yet.
Okay. What about you, Anna?
You have something to say, one more, Bridget, yes?
No, I was just saying that I've been playing around with the new concurrency features in some sample projects. I haven't like yet gotten the confidence to start implementing it in the app right now.
I have several pet projects and in which I also try to new features. And in this case, I use async await, and also I was interested in multi-platform development, and new conception of async await is easy. Is really easy to be combined with such things as Kotlin flows, and it makes everything more sophisticated and more completed, and it's really nice and easy to use it. And as for me, async await conception is more interesting as combine, and combine means for me something just like from Eric Swift world, and I'm not a big fan of reactivity, and I prefer something more from .NET world, and async await for me is just like this because I began several years ago as a C# developer. It was prior I wasn't a developer. So, and yes, and for me, this async await approach is more sophisticated and is more convenient and more promising technology.
It's interesting that you mentioned that because I didn't start off with Swift development as well, and I've seen the async await concepts in other languages already. So I think it's a more familiar concept for people coming to iOS development. I mean, if they've worked in other areas before, if they're newcomers, then that doesn't apply probably. But the whole concept of GCD is something that, for me at the beginning, it was a really tough thing to grasp because it's so different than it is on other platforms. So I really like that. In that sense, it's like working the same way as it does in, for example, like JavaScript. For example, they are also heavily reliant on async await and the whole pattern. Right. So I really enjoy that, and I think we talked about that in the last time we discussed that many features are like growing together, and languages, for example, with Kotlin and Swift, are becoming more and more like familiar from a concept perspective. Do you think that's still a trend going forward?
I actually learned Swift first, and then in my college courses, I learned JavaScript and in JavaScript and Java. Like while learning Java, I was like, it's striking similarities between Swift and Java. Like I can see how they went about developing this language, like best of everything that they can find.
And how was it for JavaScript?
I think I found like more similarities between Swift and Java. JavaScript, I just hacked it just for the courses. I didn't really play around it that much.
It's a different beast.
Yeah.
But Anna, what's your opinion there? Because you're the most sophisticated in the other platforms, right?
I think it's a really nice intention that all the languages become similar, and maybe one day there will be one language that will be available on different targets and different ID. But it will be a long future. And before this, we'll be using different languages and with all these different availabilities and opportunities.
Nice.
You're
a dreamer.
Is there any is there any new API or SDK that you guys discovered that you're like immediately thinking of or developing an app with or implementing it in any of your existing projects?
That's a great question.
I think last year Jordi found SharePlay and developed Navi, which went on to like get him an ADF finalist nomination.
Yeah, I mean, Swift Charts is something that will probably power a lot of functionality in many different apps because there's been community packages around it. But I haven't seen too much of it. But apparently, it really combines many of the great concepts there. So I think that could be something that a lot of people are using. But aside from that, I don't really have anything I directly want to jump on and build something with it. Anna, do you have something
I think,
there?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't used charts on new version, but in some tasks, sometimes there is a task on my work that to add some kind of chart, and I think it's really nice that there is opportunity, and it's really nice that it is some kind of Swift UI first approach in this with this feature. So Unfortunately, there is no such analog in UIKit world. So it could be also nice to have an opportunity to use some kind of Swift UI, um, Swift UI control wrapped in UIKit, because even Swift UI is really nice and a comfortable and convenient tool. There is a big there is a huge need to work with UIKit, and it's the prior instrument, the prior tool for many developers. So Chairs is really nice and it's really promising, and I also like new features about sharing with all these already defined and implemented pickers, and there is no need to put a lot of efforts to make your own picker, to make some work, long work with all these permissions, extensions, a boilerplate, and everything is a ready-made solution with several lines of code. And what do you think about this and neutral followable protocol?
So the transferable protocol is something I have on my list as well. I wanna read up on, or like watch the session on that, because I think it sounds super interesting. But Prabaljit, do you have anything you wanna directly build an app with from the sessions?
Actually, the funny thing with Swift charts is I had just received an take home assignment for an internship project which involved heavy use of charts. I didn't check Twitter or check the news or the sessions, and I worked on it like till yesterday afternoon, creating bar chart, line chart from scratch. Then I had this weather kit and Swift chart session bookmarked to be watched instantly. And I just watched the Swift chart session and saw how easy they've made that, and just felt like what a colossal waste of time I did just before this. They've done a great job with that. They've added so many bar, point, line, area, rule, rectangle, different properties. So I after watching the session how easy they've made it, I'm looking for a way to implement, somehow push it in any one of my projects. It looks beautiful and so easy to implement.
Nice, that's really cool. All right, so we're approaching, we're already above the half an hour mark. I have two more questions I wanna ask each of you. The first is, how exhausted are you after this week? Because it's Friday now. We've had 1 week of WWDC. So what's the exhaustion level for you?
Actually, I am pretty exhausted. I know I have tried to done as much as I could, but I then open Slack and see all the unread channels and see how much I've missed out on. And then I can neither rest and can neither watch the session.
Okay.
Well, the most exhausting thing is it's a lot of sessions to watch. It's a little time this week, and you have to make some job because you are working. And also, we are not robots, and we have to sleep. So this is the most exhausting thing in this week. But I think that we are going to watch everything we are interested in on the weekends and maybe next weeks. And also, I like the approach that you, Stefan, told us with Antoine on last session on Tuesday, that it's really nice idea to make an approach on these topics you are interested in, and not to try to watch everything, only the most important for you, your job, your pet projects topics. Of course, everyone wants to watch everything. Unfortunately, it's not possible.
Yeah, that's true. And I also mentioned that I think that, Apple gives us a content for an entire year. right? So it's the next WWDC is 1 year from now. So we have a lot of time. We don't have to stress ourselves that we have to try out everything that was introduced and we have to play around with every API. It's totally fine to just sit back and don't watch too much of it now, but just keep it throughout the year. That's also like a perfectly fine approach to do it. Like nobody should feel pressured to watch as many sessions as possible and neglect sleep or anything else. So I think that's a very important note to always make when talking about that. All right, so I want to ask you for before we end this about do you have, okay, so two things. Do you have any highlight session, like if somebody has not watched anything yet, so what's the favorite session you watched so far that you would recommend? And second, is there anything you're still looking forward to? Because there's still sessions announced today or released today, so that's going to be interesting to see. So do you have any high recommendation, and do you have anything you're still looking forward to? Maybe Anna, you can start off.
Well, as for me, in my list for today, there is sessions about multi-platforming and sessions about supporting multiple devices. I like the idea of this trend of shared play and how to operate with this. And it's really cool that it's not only a defined tool, but also an opportunity for developers to use these possibilities in their work. So I highly recommend for everyone to know this new conception. And also I mentioned for me all the tools about security and privacy, so because it's high topic for me. And also there is still be several sessions about Swift UI and widgets to be watched. And also I'm going to rewatch everything about concurrency because I need to understand it. It's nice to watch it, but also I need to understand it, all these new conceptions.
And I said one, not like everything. But I totally get you. It's, yeah, I get you. Oh, nice. Thank you. What about you, Prabaljit?
I think for my watch list, I want there's the weather kit session, and this time surprisingly there's only one session about what's new in health kit. That's that's I think I'll. There are many more. I think I should stop with these two because then you just go on. And and like as I said, if I want to recommend any one session, I started with like a watch party in the Swift UI lounge with what's new in Swift UI. So like it was a big shocker when I saw screenshots on Twitter that navigation view is deprecated. So in that session, they start with navigation stack and everything new in navigation and Windows. They also go into the improvements in lists, forms, tables, the advanced controls where they like show a hint of improvements with the SF symbols and everything. Like that's a really great session to get you. If someone hasn't watched anything, that's a great session to like really get you excited. And then there are other sessions where you can get deep into those particular topics. So like that's a pretty good session. And if there is any other watch party, I'll check the Slack. I'll attend that.
Nice. All right. So for me, I'm looking forward. There's one session today. I think it's about server side Swift development because I think it's a really interesting topic. It's called Use Xcode for Server Side Development because I was watching a conference talk. I think it was in Turin by Tim Condon about server side development with Vapor. And it was like a really great talk, and I think it's a really cool concept and powerful capabilities. So it's going to be interesting what Apple does with it. That's one of the things I'm still looking forward to. And then the one thing that I wanted to recommend, and if anybody hasn't seen it, I really like the talk. It's called "Bring Your World into Augmented Reality," because I mean I'm a fan of AR. I really like it. And this was a fascinating one because they were talking a lot about the object capture framework, which was introduced last year, which it's an SDK where you can take photos of an object, like 80 to 100 pictures, and then they will create a 3D model from that. And what was really interesting was in this session, they created an app from scratch. So they created an AR chess game, and they went through the entire process of collecting, like taking pictures of the chess pieces, creating the 3D models out of that, and then bringing them into AR, writing custom shaders and everything, which I've absolutely no clue about. But it was really nice because you got an impression from how to create this experience end to end. And this was a really welcoming thing because some of the talks are very theoretical, and this was a really like practical, real world application related talk, and I really enjoyed that. So I think there's these are some
really interesting.
Yeah, I highly recommend this. It's cool. Nice. So I think that's all from us, right? For today. I just quickly wanna say again, there's the WWDC series. I think it's WW series, right? Happening from Jordi. You should follow that on Twitter, and you can contribute to that. It's a really cool project, I think. And then also there's the WWDC Community Hackathon happening tomorrow. You can still sign up. There's prizes that you can win. And you can join the Discord channel to find teammates if you don't have any, which is also cool to meet new people from the community. And hackathons are great. So definitely consider joining there. And then I have to thank Anna and Prabaljit. It was really nice having you. Do you have anything?
Thank you, Stefan.
How can people follow you on Twitter? Maybe you can just say that quickly so you can plug yourself.
So my Twitter is on the under the video, so you can find me and you can join me. You can write me. Also, there is my Telegram.
Nice.
You can also write me Telegram. I'm sorry for it. Go ahead.
Cool.
Yeah, my username is also visible. I think at Prabaljit W. It's visible here. It's available in the video.
Nice. Awesome. Then thank you for being part of this. And we wish everyone a great rest of their WWDCs. There's still a few sessions to be released today. And yeah, I think there's going to be one more recap session. I don't know exactly when it will be. I think probably around in the next days. So stay tuned for that and have a great rest of your weeks, everybody.
Have a nice week. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.